We're continuing now with the fifth Tikun, right? After some work on the Hakdama, we've been going through the Tikunim, and I still have hopes that we're going to go back to the Hakdama soon. But this Tikun, the fifth Tikun, Tikun HaZohar, is a much more technical Kabbalah. Up to now, we've been sometimes we've been in the introduction and talking in a more general way, but tonight we're going to begin a much more technical Kabbalah. So we'll do the best we can, and what I'm able to understand, I'll try to give over. We're starting off again with Bereshis. We're starting off again with the Beit and Reish. So all the first few Tikkunim have in general, although we had a little year, but in general we're breaking up Bereshis at this time into Beit and Reishis. Now we remember that the Beit represents Bina, okay? And Bina is the highest of the sphere of the spirit with which we can have some kind of understanding. The two spheres higher than that, Chachma and Keter, are hidden and closed from us. We said because they're above language for start, so if they're above language, you can't talk about them. And in the nature, they're hidden, and that's really what we've been learning up to now. That the Beit, which says with the Beit was the entrance, the house. Beit means Beit. It's the house through which we were able to enter to a higher levels, but we have to start with the Beit, and this Tikun is going to continue that from another point of view. Bereshis, again, we say Beit Reishis, then it says Nakuda B'Hechalei. And Nakuda is a spot or a dot, right? And Nakuda is a very important concept because it's the very first manifestation of the revelation of the Almighty. A point is one-dimensional, right? That's the beginning. You start with one dimension. A line will be 2 dimensions. Then we'll have space, which is 3 dimensions. Then we'll have time, which is 4 dimensions. Then we have spiritual dimensions, 5 dimensions, etc., etc. But the Nakuda, the central point, is where things begin. Starts with a central point. So if you look at the word Bereshis in the Chumash, the Beit of Bereshis has a dagish, has a point in it, right? Dagish kal. That means, of course, when the letter Beit is at the beginning of a word, it's always in a sense. Yeah, but this is the beginning. This is the beginning. So this is the rule where it comes from. So the Beit has a point in it. So that's what the Tikun HaZohar is telling us now. Nakuda B'Hechalei, there is a point, or a Nakuda, a spot, a point in the Heichel, in the palace. So we've already said that the base represents the palace of the king, right? Because the king is found in his palace. You can't approach the king without going through the palace. So in the Beit, which is the Heichel, is a Nakuda, which is a point. So the commentaries will explain that means that the point is also the Yud, because remember that we're always going to be moving into letters. The discussions in the Kabbalah will always come in the end to letters because the revelation of the Almighty in the world as we go through the whole devolution is through letters and language consists of letters. Letters have different parts. But the point is represented by the yud, right? The yud is the smallest of the letters.
The yud, the kutz of the yud.
So then the kutz of the yud. Okay, so as Rabbi Gold points out to me, we have the letter yud has a little kutz, which means like a little. I don't want to use the word point. A little point of a point. Let's say. So that in the scheme of things represents Keter, which is higher, which is totally hidden from us. So we're not going to talk about the Keter. We're going to talk about the Yud itself. So, for example, in the divine name Yud Kevokah, we start with the Yud, and the Yud represents Chachma. So when the Tikun HaZohar says Nakuda B'Heichalah, in terms of the spirit, it means Chachma within Bina, right? The Nakuda is Chachma, and the Heichel, the palace, is Bina. So it's going to start off telling us that there is a Nakuda, the Bereshis, we're talking about the Beit. The Beit is the Chachma, is the Nakuda, which is within the Heichel. The high Nakuda is a Machshava Stim. And this Nakuda, this point, which represents the Chachma, the highest, not the highest, but the highest, which we are able to, if we're told about it, to have some concept of, the highest element of the revelation of the Almighty is a Nakuda, which is, it says, V'hai Nakuda ihim machshava stima. This is Chachma, which is machshava. Machshava simply means thought, which is closed, but machshava also has an esoteric meaning. What is my limited understanding of the Kabbalah is that this tremendous system of devolution from the highest to the lowest comes from all kinds of different levels and dimensions. We have the levels of the spirit. We have the aspect of Partsufim, right? We have the aspect of the letters of the divine name. We have the aspect of how we spell the divine name. We have all these different aspects. We have all the different aspects of the neshama, right? Now, and high, all these things. So another aspect that we have is, of course, if we use our language, because we can only grasp these things through our language, is what one might call an intellectual process. The highest thing in the intellectual process is called Ratzon. You start off with Ratzon. In the analogy, a person wants to build a house. So the first thing is he has the Ratzon. Ratzon means will, right? It says, Ratzon, when it was in the Ratzon of the Almighty to create the world. The very first beginning thing that we have is a wish to do it, right? So that represents Keter. Ratzon is like the Leshem often talks about this. Ratzon represents Keter. The level below that is called Machshava. Machshava is thought. And as I always quote Rabbi Kaplan, he wants to call that non-differentiated thought. Okay? The next stage below that is called Hirhor. Hirhor is also a mental process, but there are discussions in the Gemara whether, for example, a certain Kriyat Shema, the Shema you have to say out loud, or Tefillah you have to say out loud. So they ask if you're in a situation where you can't say out loud, because let's say someone is naked, or someone has a tumor, or Kelly is not allowed to use divine. And so they ask, is Hirhor sufficient? So Hirhor must mean that the words are in the mind. So that represents, that corresponds to Bina, because already we're forming words and concepts. So Machshava must be above, again, thought which is above language. Someone said, I can't remember, years ago, I was told that people, that sometimes pure thought is not even, it's not in language even, it's in diagrams or whatever it is, and then it comes into the mind. So that's why it's no coincidence here that it says that this Nakuda is Machshava Stima, which is a hidden, closed thought, that the Chokhmah is hidden and concealed in the Beit. It's the Nakuda, right, which is the Chokhmah, is hidden in the Beit, which means that Chokhmah is hidden in Bina, right? Pure thought is hidden in thought which has language. You can't achieve pure thought without going through first language. So that's why that's another level that the Tikkun will explain. And this is Nakuda B'Hekla, that's a debate, is a spot in the palace. And this Nakuda, what is this Nakuda? It is Machshava Stima, it's closed thought. Okay? That's how we start. So that's Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon is now giving a drush. So the Zohar, including the Tikun HaZohar, is also very much dramatic. It's an exposition of an interchange like the Gemara. Also, it's not just dry text. Things are happening. So now something happens. So when Rabbi Shimon said this, while he said this, Eliyahu is dumb in the Gabeah. So Rabbi Shimon, Eliyahu Novi suddenly appears, and he comes from wherever he is, and he comes and is next to Rabbi Shimon, and he hears what he says, and he says, Amalei, Rabbi, you know, he's Rabbi, calls him Rabbi, it's a term of endearment. We know from the Chumash when the Almighty goes out of Avram, right, or repeats the word, he calls someone the same word twice. It's a term of endearment to have a child, and you say Chaim, you know, when you say it twice, it's a term of endearment. So Eliyahu Hanavi says to Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi, Vaha Beit Ticha Ihu, Im Kain B'mai Ihu Machshava Stima. But wait a minute, Rabbi Shimon, you're giving us this drasha that you have a point which is enclosed and hidden. You just said it's Machshava Stima, it's closed in the letter Beit. But the letter Beit is an open letter, so it's called, it's closed on three sides and it's open on one side. It's very important that it's open. So what do you mean that the letter, that the Nakuda is closed in the Beit? But it's not closed because the Beit is not closed. That's what Eliyahu comes, because the Zohar is also in a question and answer. It's a dialectic, asks questions and gives answers. Usually the questions, unlike sometimes the Gemara can reject the question, usually in the Zohar they accept the question, you're right, and therefore because of that question we will come now to a deeper, further explanation. So but here he says, Eliyahu says to Rabbi Shimon, he says, what do you mean that it's closed, but the letter Beit is open? It's open from one side. So how can you say that there's this Machshava, is the Nakuda, which is closed inside? But at the beginning of the rule of the king, Homnus, an interesting word, probably might be a Greek or a Latin word, or often we use words relating to power and government. We either use Greek or Latin words because we were under at this time we were under the Roman rule. So I said that at the beginning of the Homnusa of the Malka, at the beginning of the rule of the king, the beginning of the rule of the king, that's the Kodesh Baruch Hu, right? That's the Almighty. So why does he call itself the king? Because we know that one of the reasons the Almighty creates the world is because if it's a king, he has to have subjects. A king without subjects is no king. So this is at the beginning of the creation. But the Tikun wants, or Eliyahu wants to use the language. He doesn't want to say at the beginning of the creation. At the beginning of the rule of the king. In other words, when the king is in the process of the creation of a world which will include subjects, so that he is a king. At the beginning of that point of time, Butsina Dekadenusa. A Butsina is a light. We call Rabbi Shimon is always called a Butsina. Butsina is a light, a very strong light. Kad Madid Meshicha, which is measuring. Madid means it's a measuring of the Meshicha is, let's say, the oil. We could say it's the oil in an analogy. A king wants to create a world, right? And now he's going to start with a light. You've got to have light. Because the world is in darkness, we said last week, right? You start off in darkness. You've got to have light to bring into the place where you're going to create the world. So he brings in his lamp, right? So first of all, he wants to know how much oil he should bring in order to light the light, so there'll be light below. He doesn't want to bring too much oil, because if you put too much oil in, you're going to flood the light. Right? Or it's going to break. The vessels are going to break. That's called the Shvira Sakalim. That's what we're going to see. But sometimes that happens, but of course that happened intentionally. But at the beginning of the rule of the king, so he decides, Butsina Dekadenusa, so it's a strong light, it says. It's, I don't want, the commentaries go into Kabbalistic terms about Gvura and the Parzuf and Atik. I don't think it's necessary for us to do that, because I will have to explain at length all these concepts. But Kad Madid Meshicha, when he measured how much oil to give to the lower worlds. In other words, he's going to create a world, and he wants to know how much shefa, how much bracha he can give them. The Almighty is all we don't. We can't say it's light, because, but in our terms, light is the purest thing we can think of. So how much light can he bring down to the world? How much light can it take? Well, what's the proper measurement of light? This is at the beginning of the rule of the king, to bring down to the shefa, the bracha, to the lower world. Hai nakuda napik minekav. So this nakuda, which was the beginning point from which everything else is going to come, right? You see, it starts off, we said it's a one-dimensional thing. They're going to start off, here is a point, and from that point, we say, Hanakuda napik mine kav. From that point comes a line. Okay? You're a painter, right? I'm not a painter, but I say painter start one. An artist, right? So it stops with a you can stop with puts a drop of paint on his canvas, and then he pulls a line from that. So from the one-dimensional point, he's going to make a two-dimensional line. Okay? So first you want to know how much ink you should put on the canvas for this point. And now from there, a line is going to come from this point. That's it says, this is what Eliyahu is explaining his own question. He asked Rabbi Shimon the question, how can you say that the Nakuda is closed within the bait, but the bait is open? So he's answering his own question, saying, so at the beginning when the king makes this hard point, and he was measuring how much shefa, bracha, right, to bring down. So from this point with which he starts comes a line. The Sotim Mitzutza Ahimachshava Kagavna Dememsa. So what it does is it closes this line, closes the other side of the bait. In other words, we had a bait which is open, we have a point within it, and then from that point will come a line, and that line will be a line which is going to close the bait, and it's going to make it into a closed mem. A mem, there are two letters which are closed. It's the mem shafit and the samach. So it says the satin tzutza ahi machshava kegavna damem. And so first of all we had the bait which is open to one side, and then comes a vav which is a line, and that closes the bait until it takes the form of a mem shafit. Right? Keda bakadmisa ihu mem stima, bakadi pashet kavdi ihu vav min amida, ihu it patachat it apita bait, to have voracious, bait voracious, nakuda bahechler. So now he's going to explain it deeper. Before this line came out, Chacham was closed in all sides like this closed mem. And when this light comes out, which is like the vav, which comes out and is going to go below, it comes out and it's within the bait, the house. So then the closed mem is open to make a letter bait. At first he seemed to say that there was a bait and the line came out and closed it. But now he seems to be saying rather opposite. He seems to say maybe there are different processes. First of all, we have the bait, and we have the nakuda in it. So then it becomes closed. But now there's a next stage, which is a further stage of opening. The lesson explains, and the holy books explain, that the process of what I call devolution, which is the process of creation, consists of four aspects. There is a hitpatrut, an opening, or hitpashtut. You have the point, it spreads out, right? The light spreads out. That's number one. And then it withdraws. And then it comes back again, and it spreads out again. And then there is another withdrawal. It's not just so that it's a double action. So I think this is what it's explaining first. First of all, we had a bait, and then we put the nakuda in. A line came out and closed it. But if it's closed, it's not going anywhere. Then it doesn't. There's no shepherd. There's nothing coming down to the rest of the creation. So then there's another stage where it opens or reopens, and it becomes a bait. And he says, so first of all, there was this closed mem. Maybe before the closed mem, there was also a bait, but now at this point, we're starting as a closed mem before the line comes out. and everything was closed. And then Vakadit Pashat Kav Ti'ilu Vav Minhamida. And then the letter Vav comes out, a line, and this is like the letter Vav, which is a line, and letter Yud is a point, right? And the letter Vav is a line. So the line comes out from the point, and it comes down, and now it is within the house of Bina, and it opens up the closed mem, and it makes it a bait, right? So maybe, well, let's not go into whether it was a bait originally, but at the point where it was closed, so now the line comes out, and it opens it up. So then that's the house. So that's the bait, and this is voracious. And this is voracious, which is the bait, which is first. That is the chokhmah, which is the nakuda inside the bait, is the very first thing. That's the nakuda da hechla. That's the point in the palace. So therefore, that's why bait is voracious. Voracious means bait is the beginning. So and now this Tikun is explaining how Eliyahu is explaining with Rabbi Shimon how the bait comes to be big, that it was closed, and a line comes out from the point and opens it up. So now we have a bait, and that's the beginning. V'kad ihu mem stima, ihi mem rakta, milisabbe hamisra. And this, when the mem was closed, that's to say that the chachma, the higher level, we're talking about a very high level in the Kabbalah, we're talking at the very highest level, at the beginning of the whole devolution of all these spheres and all the parzufim and everything else, at the very, very highest level. So this mem, which was closed, it was a large mem, a big mem, which is in a pasuk in Yeshayahu, Masraba Amisra. Let's get the pasuk. Got our comments out enough, the big lights on that. Here it is. So in Yeshayahu, Tet 9, verse 6. Remember that the Zohar, in many, many cases, relies on verses in the prophets and in the Chumash, which it learns according to the Sod. So now we understand a little bit what the Sod will be. A verse has, as we know, the Tanakh is interpreted in 4 ways, right? Which is called Pardes, Pshat, Remez, Drasha, and Sod, Pardes, which is Pardas, which is an orchard. So the Zohar will explain verses according to the Sod, which seems hidden until we're told, well, there's a secret. I will say something which you didn't know until you were told, but it's been told. That's why it's a secret. Before it's not even a secret, because you can't talk about it. So in Tet 12 it says, it's an interesting verse. So if you look at the way it's written, it's very interesting. L'mabe hamisra uya shalom and kates. The verse says, I'm reading the English translation, for the one who has greatness and boundless peace, peace which has no end, on the throne of David and on his kingdom to establish and to prevail for righteousness throughout. It's a vision of the future, and it's no coincidence that the Zohar wants to talk about this, but it's this is all the stuff that the Goyim use. It says a child is born, his name is Pelayois. These are the verses that they say as a sort of prophecy of the false Messiah. But the interesting thing with the Zohar is interesting is the word is Lamarbe, to increase, right? The verse starts Lamarbe, but if you look in the verse here, the mem is written as a mem sofit. The second word, the second letter of the word. Here, have a look. The Lamarbe, but the mem sofit is always at the end of a word, right? You don't get the mem nuns or those letters which have an ending. You don't get them in the middle of the word. It's supposed to be in the end of the word. But here it says it's written. Do you see that? The first word. The mem is closed. Right? The mem in the middle of the word, or the second letter of the word, is closed. So he said, that's hinted at in the Pasuk. The Marbe HaMisra, it says, for this mem is in the middle of a letter, a word, and it says.
So why? So Rabbi, maybe ask Rabbi why the mem is closed in this word here.
Right. So now the Tikun HaZohar is going to explain. So he says this is a hint in this verse because the verse is talking about the opening, the revelation of the almightiness of the King. So it starts off closed, and then it's going to expand and be shown. And one of the Mefoshim says rather interesting that the word, the Marbe in Gematria, means strength, oaths, power. It's and it's a hint to the closed power of the Almighty, which will burst up and come out and be spit out. And it says, so this, all the rule, because the Marbe means to increase, right? To be increased. So the Misra, the power of the Misra is also like the government. The government of the king will be increased, and that's hinted at because it starts off as a closed mem, quite out of place. And that's how it started. It's a closed mem, and it's going to open up and be increased and grow, and the rule of the king of the Mashiach will come out, which is also hinted in that passage. Because the Mashiach also is closed in exile, right? In the sense that the Mashiach represents not only the one person, the king, who will bring through the redemption, but it means the potential. So all the time that the Jewish people are in exile, the potential of the redemption is there, but it's closed. You can't see it, right? As I said many times, you walk around. I was in Poland in 1934, 35, or in Spain, coming up to the expulsion, or all these other places. We know because we have a Moonish life that the redemption is coming, but go and see it, go and find it, right? Can't find it. You and the train's going to Auschwitz because the redemption was there, and but it was hidden, it's closed up in us. So also here, this is like a remez. This is what they are saying at the beginning. The king, all the blessing is closed, but it's open. It's hidden, but it's going to come out. So that's what it's saying here. Valma it avidas iska, and it's like an iska is like a ring. So sometimes it's used as handcuffs in clothes, and it's also a tabata ring. The ring, the classic ring we give, like a wedding ring, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is square on the outside, right? And round on the inside.
I don't know.
You can have a ring, well, this is the marshal of the example that's given now, is that it's like this mem. You see, the mem sofit is exactly that. And mem sofit, if you look on the outside, the four outside lines are square, right? But the inside is often printed as in round. It could be printed in round. It's like we see often in the Gemara, we talk about these things. A circle enclosed in a square. A circle enclosed in a square. So I think that that's what we're talking about now. He says, it's abidas iska. The chokmah is like a ring which is a closed mem. The technical things, because and the technical Kabbalah Chachma has four aspects. In motion, I'm just going to say it, and I'm not going to try to explain it first because I don't understand it myself, but I'm not able to explain it to you. And I don't, but it's the very highest in the dogma of a man. A man consists of a head, you could say, and the body. The head, in the higher worlds where we use the example of a man. So we talk about the head, and the head consists of mokin, which is kind of brains or the intellectual aspects. So usually we say that there's Chabad, right, which is three aspects. Chabad is Chachma, Bina, Das, but above that there's Ketu also, which is so that there's an aspect which the mochin, the intellectual aspect, the highest intellectual aspect, which is in the highest world, and also in our world, has four separate aspects. So that's why it's like a square. So that's why the mem sofit is also like a square. It's not just a round. Samach is round, but the mem sofit has four sides to it, which is also a remez to these four aspects of the mochin. Okay. So now we continue. He says, "Ubegina itma legabe kala." So now that's in this way. That's why the chassan, the groom, the chassan, says to the kala, his bride, "Teheli mukudeshes b'tabat zu." You should be married to me, mukudeshes. I will translate married, but it's a much deeper thing because it has the word mukudeshes, has the word means holy, right? Mukudeshes is related to the word holy. It's also mukudeshes because he separates her when someone gives something to the Beis Hamikdash, he separates it. Kodesh and Chol. Kodesh means separated, so Mekudeshes means he separates her. So now when he separates her, we say B'tabakzu. Now, it's an interesting thought because in the halacha, a man can mekadesh a wife, which means that he has a relationship of marriage, whatever, by giving her money, silver, or the value of silver, right? That's how one of the ways is mekadesh, or the usual way that we mekadesh is to give, because it has a legal acquisition, a legal relationship, which is usually done by the giving, can be done by the giving of something, of something of value, which is money. So he can, if he wants to mekadesh a wife, he can give her some money, silver, he can give her anything. But we give a ring. And we give a ring, so the Zohar, the Tikun HaZohar wants to say now, that is because the ring is like a closed, like a mem. And there's a parallel there between what we're learning about the mem is like the beginning of the creation of the king. So that's when a Hassan wants to give his wife, so now he's creating a holy relationship of marriage. So he does that with a tabat. He says, Tieli Mukadeshis Batabat. So he doesn't say, I would think if I was writing the law, I should say, he says, At Mukadeshis Bakesef there, right? Because the Torah says it's Makadesh Bakesef. It happens to be a ring, because a ring's a nice thing, and she can wear it on her finger, and etc., etc. But as we're talking in the halacha, in the law, so you're mekadeshesly with a kesef, because it's kesef which halachically is mekadeshes. But no, because the ring becomes the thing that creates the kedusha. And the Tikun HaZohar wants to say, because that's like this closed metal. The ring that he gives her is the closed metal. Ba'ala itma kutra b'golem. And of this we say this is a kesher. A kutra means a kesher, a knot, a tie. But gulma actually means without a shape. Gola means without a shape. So it's that's why ketu is also actually called the gulma. That Rabbi Gold will tell us, right? We use in the Sefer Yetzirah, we have this concept, correct? That it's a thing that has, like a very basic thing, doesn't even yet have a form. So it's creating a knot. The knot is made with the ring.
Bone is like a
Forms.
it's like a homer.
Mm-hmm. It's chomer without soil. It's chomer, it's material without. So and it also really means a gola means balei hasaga. So since it doesn't have a form, you can't grasp it, right? We can only grasp things. A bottle, because it has a shape of a bottle, it has a shape of a glass. If it's you need a form in order to talk about it, or to grasp it, or to have hasaga, understanding of it. So this is a kesher, like a knot of something which is formless. He says, "Va'ala itma kutra b'gulma, nauts be'izka." Very, what does nauts means? That it's like it's sowed, it's planted. It's like a ring. It's like a ring. Now it's be'izka. So now this, because we're calling it like a gulma, which is like a shapeless thing, it says it's not white, and it's not red, and it's not black, and it's not green. It doesn't have any color at all. The card it pashtal and Nahar, and when it comes down to light, Ihu Avidas Gavnin Nahar. Then it will make light, colors, in order to give light to what is below. So very deep. The question of light and colors. It's a very deep, one of the deepest concepts that we have to try to grasp, which as we go on, please God, we'll be able to understand more about. So the highest light does not appear to have colors, right? As light passes through a prism, it will break up into colors. Are those colors contained in the pure light but hidden? Or are they simply the surface of in the lower world which the light hits and therefore reveals? So, what? You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
This is blue, right? Is it blue because when the light comes, it breaks up and the combination of the light hitting the surface of this makes it blue? Or it will happen to be blue, but you only see the blue when the light hits it. So this is interesting, because we're going to have to be concerned with all this. Colors are very deep. But the colors, right? We started off with the Zohar. The very first thing we talked about, the Tikun HaZohar, was Zohar is brightness. So we had a Zohar black, white, we had a Zohar red, we had all these different colors. So that when at some point, when the light enters the lower worlds, it breaks up into colors. Yeah? When it's highest, it doesn't have colors that are visible, and it breaks up into colors. So this is like everything else, because in everything else we can say that everything in the very highest point, this one little tiny point which starts, everything is there, right? We say, this is everyone, they know all this now, all the cosmologists and the scientists and everything. They know that in that one original point, everything is contained, that it's not yet revealed, it comes out. So here he's telling us also that when he gives, I could say, if I might be given, when the chassan gives the color of the ring, doesn't have colors yet. As the marriage goes on and they love each other more and give more and more and bring more light into their relationship, so then they begin to see all the colors. The colors will fill their lives. So I think that's really what the Zohar is telling us now. At this very first thing, there are no colors. But there are colors, but they're hidden. You can't see them like everything. What? No color. It says there's no color. But it pashtala nahara, when it comes to give out light, when it comes, they're all different words for light, but this is, it comes out to give out light. When it's giving out the light, ihu avidas gavanin, then it makes colors so you can see. I would speculate that we need colors to see, right? If you didn't have colors, you wouldn't see anything. Colors are necessary for seeing. If it was all just pure light,
Differentiation.
there's no differentiation, exactly. So again, we're similar like language and all the rest of it. Colors is it's a parallel to differentiation in language. The colors are differentiation in light. So the Tikun HaZohar is comparing that with the beginning of the marriage. He gives the ring. The ring doesn't yet have any colors, but when it comes to giving light, so now all the colors. Well, okay, let's go on a little bit more. Razu Demila, and this is the soul of the word. We have a beautiful verse in Tehillim, which we say when we put on talis in the morning. Ote or Kusama. Tehillim Kuf Dalet. Psalms 104, right? Right. Part of Baruch Nafshi. Right at the beginning. Baruch Nafshi es Hashem. Bless my soul, Almighty Hashem Elokai. A very deep verse. We could spend weeks talking about this. It says, Almighty, you have become very great. Hod v'hoda levashta. You are garbed, you're dressed in hod and hoda, glory and majesty. All this is also like, of course, the Melech is here talking about this very thing. Ote or kusama. Ote, which means cover. Cover yourself with light, like a salma, like a garment. Note Sheman, and you spread out the heavens like a curtain. Ote, so now the Tikkun is picking up on this. So it says this is the sod of the pasuk. Ote or kusam. Kad ihu or ma'uta below it. So he says that when the light is metatef, it's like it's surrounding something, it's gone, it's covered. Although it pashet, it's not yet spread out. The ihu saktam, it's closed, right? So first of all, the Almighty puts the light around him, like the mem sofit, right? Like the final mem is covered. This is what we're saying. It's covered like a robe all around him. Ihu satum, it kare avir. So then it's called avir. So avir.
It's called before under pressure. It's under pressure.
Avir. So avir is interesting. We learned this in the lesson. Avir is the word or, right? Aleph of Resh, with a yud in the middle, right? So that means that the yud, which is the point that we started with, the chokhmah, is hidden, is enclosed in the or sotum ba'et yud. The light is closed with, and within this is this letter yud. Nakuda dehechra. This is this point in the palace. This is like the avir is the yud in the palace of all. Kad apik yud mi avir. When the yud goes out of the avir, so what's left? Oh, light. So then we have the light. And that's what it says when the Almighty says, let there be light. What does he mean, let there be light? There was light, but the light was hidden in the point. Now, the light separates from the point, and the Almighty says, let there be light, so that then the light floods all of creation. So that's voracious, the fate of voracious according to